So 6:30 in the morning, I roll out of bed and I'm like, oh man, tomorrow I'm going to start my diet. So you keep pushing it out in front of you, okay? You have to say things in the present tense, else you are manifesting through your words the condition of the now. And the condition of the now is, I need to lose weight. So you need to be thinking about it's in the now. So you can't be holding two conflicting thoughts at the same time. You cannot be thinking, I am unhealthy and need something to be healthy. At the same time, you're holding an affirmation of I'm in perfect health and in God's image from moment to moment. You can't hold those two conflicting thoughts in your mind at the same time. So if you go through life saying, I'd really be happy if I was rich. God, if I just had some more money, I would be happy. Well, what does God answer your prayer with? Live in poverty, my child. I mean, that's what you're saying, is in the now, I'm unhappy and in poverty. And God says, you got it, kid. Go for it. Because you're making your happiness conditional on having something which you perceive you don't have, when you've always been provided the abundance you've always needed. Present tense, active voice. In English, we have action verbs, and we have being verbs, like is, are, was, were, and we have action verbs like run, jump, play, so forth and so on. It's much better to use action verbs if you can phrase your affirmation in action verbs. It would be better to say, I run fast, instead of saying, I am a fast runner. If you can rephrase it into action verbs, it's a better affirmation. And it all has to do with brain synapses, the way the word and the concept is formed in terms of numbers of brain synapses involved in anchoring that, what we might call a cognitron, a thought group of neuronal firings. There are a larger number of brain neurons involved in action verbs, because it involves an image and everything else of the running, than saying, I run fast. If you make it an action verb, you get much more imprint on the physical world than you do if you use being verbs. So to the degree that you can, try to make things action verbs. Present tense, active, good things. Present tense, active voice, favorable thing. Positive statements. Present tense, active voice, positive statements. You don't want to go around saying, I'm a bad person. I'm a bad person. I mean, why are you talking to yourself this way? You know, you should say good things. Now, it's very important that you think about this. I mean, thinking about what you're going to say. Who do you think is speaking? You know, first there was the word. Who do you think is speaking here? Talk. Think about what you're saying. If I say, tomorrow I'll start my diet, today I'm saying, I'm too fat. Why should I go around saying, I'm too fat? Why? It's just going to manifest that in my life. So you have to be very careful. Even the concept of saying, I'm getting better and better every day. And that sounds so nice. But what is it really saying about the now? I'm not quite so good today. Okay? Think about what you're saying. When you're creating your affirmation, which is the tool you're going to use for navigation in this mental space, think about what you're going to say in your affirmation about setting your intent. Present tense, active voice, positive statements. Done in an altered state of consciousness. In my wide-awake ego state now, there are many, many things that I'm aware of that are going on right now. But they get filtered out. Those things that rise to consciousness get filtered out, like the sounds of the phones ringing upstairs, or people walking on the floor, the changing of the shadows as the sun passes, the sounds of the seats moving around. All of those get sort of filtered out because the only thing that's important is the next three words that come out of my mouth. And so I have this threshold of importance, somewhat like Maslow's thresholds, you know. Remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs? You know, is this thing going to kill me? Is it going to provide me food, clothing, and shelter? Am I going to get laid? You know, all these different things are prioritized as to the importance of this particular input coming in. So I have this like executive council that's filtering out all of these perceptions. So if I say right now in my wide awake beta activity brainwaves, paying attention to what the next 3 words coming out of my mouth are going to be, if I say, I run fast, what do you think happens? My filter system says, that is the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. You are a 60-year-old fat man. This statement will not be integrated into self-concept. Immediately in the trash. Okay? It's like, you know, on your computer, put this in the trash. Okay? Now, fortunately, this executive council that filters out things that are coming into my input and says what's important and what's not important goes to sleep when you alter your consciousness down into the theta state. Somewhat like hypnosis and the idea of post-hypnotic suggestion. In my wide-awake state right now, if you said, okay, when you wake up and I clap my hands, you'll bark like a dog. My wide-awake ego state says, you don't have that kind of power over me, I'm not doing that. But when this executive council goes to sleep and that suggestion is made, it's like, it sounds reasonable to me. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? You know? It's very similar to that kind of a situation. So I get down into this theta state, and it's sometimes called autogenic shift, or getting into the frontal theta state. I get down into this theta state, and I say, I am more than my physical body. And because I am more than my physical body, I run fast. Well, because this executive council is not there to filter it anymore, the brain works differently. Back here in the reticular activating system, in the brainstem, it's sort of like, and this is a metaphorical story, it's sort of like it starts saying, look that up in the files. Do we have any evidence of this? Did you hear what he said? See if you can find any evidence of that. He says, well, yeah, he went to get ice cream the other night and he ran really fast. When the dog got out, he was pretty fast too. And I saw him with his grandchildren, and he ran pretty fast chasing the grandkids, you know. Yeah, he does run fast. We will integrate this into personal concepts. Okay? Because it isn't immediately figured out, the brain itself sort of works differently in the way it deals with information. So when you're creating your affirmation, right, present tense, active voice, positive statements, you want to implement this affirmation in an altered state of consciousness. And a really good, nice, fuzzy theta state is on your way to focus 10. Okay, so that's a really good time.
Is it good to repeat it after you're in F10?
You can. There's no doubt that if you're still talking.
Just to make sure, like, that you're really...
That's fine. Anchoring it is just fine. It's as long as you're not in the beta wide awake state, which is the time when it's likely to be discarded.
I was doing it first off, because I always do it first off.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wanted to be protected all the time. So I was missing it. I was binning half of it.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about the last thing on the list that might help you there too, okay? Present tense, active voice, positive statements done in an altered state of consciousness. Okay, these are like suggestions for optimizing, okay? It's not absolute, but a suggestion. And the last one is to objectify. Now, objectify is a remote viewing word that I stole from Ingo Swann. And it has to do with making it physical. The word objectify here is using it in a verb form to physicalize it, to take it out of ethereal, wishy-washy mental space and make it a physical thing. Physicalize or objectify, to make an object of it. And what we're talking about here is, you know, imagine yourself thinking in your mind. You're saying, no, maybe I'll do this. I don't know. I could do this. You know, last time at 15 we went to that big Crystal Palace. Maybe I'll do that. Nah, I've already been there. Let's go someplace else. And you have all this sort of just